This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Julianne Condia, host of Rewritten, here on Public House Media. Thank you so much for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Rewritten, where we will talk about you having limitless potential and can rewrite your story at any time. No matter your background, your past, or current situation, you can have the type of life you crave. A new show comes out every single Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Rewritten. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
has saved the USA's life in this World Cup. Paul, the runner, loose ball, it's good. Gonzaga, the slipper still fits.
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. He's in. Patriots win the Super Bowl. Brady has his fifth.
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness. I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
Welcome back to the Cheap Seats, everyone. This is the Wednesday show, so you're joined with Keith Hoehne and not Max Wolpoff. We have Christian Heimall joining us. Obviously, he is on the Monday show with Christian and Jonathan. Max was unable to make it. Today we have a great show coming up. Gary Sanchez is on the DL. How does that affect the Yankees? Wayne Rooney, is he heading to D.C.? And, of course, we have talk about this NBA offseason circus that it always is. Christian, thank you so much for joining me and filling in for Max on this Wednesday show.
Yeah, buddy. As always, happy to help out and happy to be with you guys.
Yeah, let's jump right into it, Christian. Let's start out. Gary Sanchez on the DL for the New York Yankees. How does this affect them? Or is it it's before obviously the All-Star break? What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting. With that Yankee lineup, you talk about Sanchez as one of those big power bats, and depending on how long he's on the DL, that's really the biggest question mark. If this is a 3-week thing, if this is a 6-week thing, and he had just started playing well. He had just started hitting the ball very, very well. Austin Romine's going to come up. He's been pretty solid for this team, which is good. But Sanchez, I think this might actually help the Yankees a little bit, which is scary to think that. Sanchez is batting 190. Austin Romine's batting 305 in his limited times so far this year from earlier in the year when Sanchez was hurt. But, I don't know how this really, really hurts them. Again, the question is how long does it take for Gary to get back from the DL, but as of right now, I don't think you can hurt the Yankees lineup. As long as you got Giancarlo and Aaron Judge and Brett Gardner and whoever else is actually contributing, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I'm really thinking the same thing here, and especially before the All-Star break. A lot of people say baseball doesn't matter until after the All-Star break. I don't necessarily believe that, but I'm somewhat of a believer in that as well. There's a lot of changes that you can make to help you out the second half of that season there in the All-Star break. Obviously, whenever you have a player go down on the DL that is Sanchez's caliber, it obviously affects you. But I tend to agree with you on your side there that this is a very strong team that's currently at the top of the division right now. you can't afford to, lose too many games or go on too much of a slump if you have a player out, because you have the Red Sox right there. That's arguably the best team in American League.
I tell you where it's really kind of interesting, though, is with Austin Romine and how well he was playing. He was a pretty I don't know one way if the Yankees were even thinking about this, but he was a trade chip. He was playing at that caliber where you could use him in a deal to maybe go get that one missing piece. That end of the line, end of the rotation starter that's really going to shore things up, or that middle relief guy that you need. Because, the one thing I've said about the Yankees is they've got the best bullpen in baseball. They've got arguably the best lineup in baseball, but their pitching staff, to me, the starting rotation is a little bit unproven. You're seeing it get better with Domingo Germán and a couple of other guys, but the Yankees could have, if they wanted to, we've seen Brian Cashman do this, they could have easily used Austin Romine and dealt him for a quality starter to put in there the number 3 or the number 4 spot in the rotation and really help propel them towards the end of the year. Now with Gary Sanchez out, you need Austin Romine, so you don't have that trade chip anymore. So it's again, I have no idea if the Yankees were planning on doing that. I don't know if the Yankees plan on doing any trades this year. They seem to be pretty set, but anytime you lose a all-star in Gary Sanchez, and I use air quotes because all-star in baseball to me is a stupid term, because it's fan votes and not actual true all-stars. But when you look at losing a guy like Gary Sanchez, his backup who could have been a trade chip is now the most vital part of your team.
Right, and that could also help somewhat as well, right? Knowing having to play those guys that could be, a potential trade down the road. You have a chance if that player plays well. All of a sudden, his stock goes up, and you could all of a sudden get more for him down the road, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. But in the same token, it could also cost you more in the sense that
absolutely.
When it's free agency, if say Austin Romine decides that he wants to enter the free agency market, and he may have the ability to, after he's played well, he may have a better opportunity in arbitration or anything like that. I'm looking at his contract right now, and he's arbitration eligible this year. This is his 3rd year for arbitration. He's only making $1.1 million this year. So if he plays really, really well, this could cost the Yankees a lot more.
That's true. All right, moving forward, Brooks Orpik. He is now a free agent after a quick trade. The Avalanche got him over from the Washington Capitals and then immediately bought out his contract, and now he is a free agent. Christian, what do you see moving forward for the 37-year-old?
I don't know. We kind of knew this deal was coming. This was part of the reason why the Avalanche made that trade, or why the Capitals, made that trade, is because it was an option to dump his $5.5 million salary. And they were able to re-sign John Carlson to an 8-year deal, which was insane. Good for the Caps. I don't know if I've heard rumors that maybe he returns to Washington. I've also is heard that he may want to retire. Who knows? But the Capitals GM Brian McClellan said that bringing Orpik back on a more manageable salary cap was a possibility, saying, quote, he's been a big part of our culture change and a big part of the room and how we go about things, how we go about business. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that. Similar to, I'm trying to remember who it was in baseball a couple of years ago, where they got the Yankees, when the Yankees traded Aroldis Chapman to the Cubs. Chicago, to the Cubs, and then signed him again in free agency. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that happen here with Brooks Orpik. He may end up back with Washington, but at 37 years old, who knows? If the Caps have, if Washington has the cap space, go for it. The guy helped you win a Stanley Cup, so why not try to keep as much of that core together?
Yeah, right. And that was I think the idea in the Avalanche. I think the front office even said that. They're not certain of how many. Let's see the quote here. I'm not sure he'll have a ton of teams that'll want to add him to their group. Sakic said that during the NFL draft. Joe Sakic, the Avalanche GM, said he wasn't sure he'll have a lot of teams that'll want to add him. So we'll see. Obviously, like you said, at 37, it's a hard addition to make if you're a team that hasn't dealt with him. That being said, as you said, the Washington Capitals, like, why not bring him back at a lower rate? You said he obviously just helps you get a ring, and it's important to have that veteran leadership, around your team as well. So we'll see what happens on that front. That'll do it for the.
Well, just real quick to Joe Sakic's point there. You look at James Neal, James Van Riemsdyk, Paul Stastny. There are so many other defensemen out there to try to potentially sign that might be, they're younger, they might be better than Brooks Orpik. So it feels like Washington is probably the only logical place for him to go.
Yeah, that's true. All right, that'll do it for the first segment of this Wednesday edition of the Cheap Seats. Coming up, we'll talk about Wayne Rooney, if he's heading to D.C. or not from Everton. We have a lot of World Cup soccer discussion coming up as well as that tournament progresses. And, of course, as we mentioned before, do not miss our talk on who else? LeBron James, because he seems to be the only one that matters when it comes to this NBA offseason. But before that, don't forget to go to our Facebook page and weigh in on the poll question. Do European soccer stars in the United States help you watch the MLS more? We'll touch on that with the Wayne Rooney discussion coming up on the Cheat Seats.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning into the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth,
co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This time for Africa.
Welcome back to the Cheap Seats, everyone. Keith Hoehne, Christian Heimall, subbing in for Max Wolpoff this week. Max unable to make it, so we have one of the halves of the Monday show joining us. So
I don't even know if I'm a full half right now. Like, I really don't. Like, I might be like a quarter of myself. So
yeah, this is how much of a Christian of a trooper Christian is. He is under the weather. So with Max out, didn't have a co-host, so Christian steps up. This is like the Jordan Cold game.
Oh
with
man,
Christian.
If I have that good of a show, wow! There we go. I'll take that. I'll take that every day of the week. Yeah, I'm playing.
No,
When I worked in college sports, I had our basketball coach used to say, "Are you injured or are you hurt?" Because you can play hurt. So I guess I'm playing hurt. So
now was Michael Jordan really? Did he really have a cold? Was he under the weather, or was he hungover?
You know what? I like our poll question today, but I think eventually at some point, bigger conspiracy theory: Michael Jordan's flu game or Kurt Schilling's bloody sock.
Oh boy.
Ooh, that could be tough. Just rip apart Jordan just for like 20 minutes for no reason. I don't think you'd be able to do that though.
You can, because there was physical evidence. Now people are going to say, well, obviously that's the conspiracy, right? The physical evidence, was that really blood? Was it a marker? But really, you had people just saying, hey, Jordan has a cold, but you could see blood on the sock, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
you could see it pooling throughout. You know, but that's a discussion for another day. I think maybe.
Yeah. Right. All right. Back to something that's a little more relevant for today's sports world. The World Cup. Obviously, that is going on right now. We are right in the thick of it. And Argentina, Christian, they're not doing too well.
No, they're struggling a little bit. Obviously, Lionel Messi hasn't been what people were kind of hoping for. They needed a lot of help. We'll see exactly how it all plays out. But, it's... and then when you have these issues within your actual camp, that's even worse.
Yeah, and that's something, and that's something that no fan wants to see. That's something that nobody wants to see. When you're not playing well, that's one thing. But when you're supposed to be playing, on the world stage at the top of your ability, and when you have rumors of, inside bickering between teammates, when you guys have to really just band together for a couple weeks to try to make a run at a World Cup title. And if your guys can't seem to get along in order to work towards that common goal, you're not going to have success. It sounds corny, but it's true. You're not going to have success if you can't have a group of 11 guys, 15 guys, obviously with subs, get together and work towards a common goal and, be okay with one another.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you've got one of the world's premier players and a generational player in Lionel Messi, and to struggle the way that they did in this World Cup, and the way they have is just it's almost like I don't even know how to describe it. Like, this is like I'm trying to think. The best way to describe it is like all these random comments we've been hearing about the Patriots, about how Danny Amendola doesn't like Bill Belichick, about how all these other, like Garoppolo torched the Patriots in practice last year before he was traded. Like all these things, like you hear, and like the players potentially for Argentina really controlling the lineup as opposed to the coach, and really just kind of trying to figure it out themselves. Like that's where issues come into play. Like Argentina should have been one of the premier, and they were, they were a finalist 4 years ago in the World Cup, and now it's like you're looking at them going, how in the world did you allow this to happen? How did a guy like Lionel Messi, who was supposed to be, the Kevin Durant to Cristiano Ronaldo's LeBron James, like just be pretty much unheard of throughout the entire tournament?
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point I wanted to ask you about. You have arguably the best player in the world with Messi, other than Cristiano Ronaldo, who's absolutely doing an incredible job right now in the World Cup. He's at in a league of his own right now. But Messi, the success that he has had with Barcelona and his teams outside of Argentina, is that a black mark on his, let's say, legacy, not being able to get it done with his national team?
I think from an international standpoint, yes, because you look at soccer and so many of those players are known for what they did for their national team. I mean, think about Pele. Pele was tremendous for the New York Cosmos in the 70s, but he was really known for what he did in Brazil. But at the same time, like we're going to talk about Wayne Rooney here in a little bit. Wayne Rooney was incredible for Manchester United, to play for Everton as well as he did this past season in the Premier League. He's going to go down as a legend, but what has he done for England? What did he do for his national team? Cristiano Ronaldo. Portugal won the European Championships 2 years ago. That, in and of itself, is completely fine. I mean, when I look at soccer players, I look at Gianluigi Buffon, who was the keeper for the Italian national team when they won the World Cup, and the keeper for Juventus, who is one of the premier clubs over there in I'm going to feel like an idiot, but I believe it's La Liga or Serie A over there. He's a stud all the way around because he's done it on both the international and the club stage. So I think at some point there will be a black mark on Lionel Messi because Argentina is such a passionate fan base, and ever since the hand of God and Diego Maradona, 30 years ago, They've been waiting for another opportunity like that, and Messi was supposed to be that guy and couldn't get it done.
Yeah, and that's something that I think you have to accomplish, especially if you're in one of those power countries for soccer, if you're one of those international superstars and have spent a lot of time with your international team in these other countries. I'm leaving the United States out of this because obviously we don't have a lot of those stars at the level that these other countries have. Right.
It's almost backwards for the U.S. It's like we don't care what you do for the national team. Can you go over in Europe and can you perform like Christian Pulisic, Tim Howard, when they played over in the Premier League? Can you actually perform over on the other side of the pond as opposed to actually playing for our national team? Because we know that our national team isn't going to do well.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, this year we're left out of the World Cup. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what people have to say about Messi after this World Cup, because obviously he got a lot of flack for, in the past for not doing well with his national team. So that'll be interesting. But I definitely agree. When you're one of those superstars, you have to have more success at the national level than Messi has had with Argentina. Moving forward, you just mentioned Wayne Rooney. He's one of, and it's part of our poll question as well, he is one of our next MLS stars, it looks like, as he is nearing closer to an agreement with DC United to head over there from Everton. What do you think about that, Christian?
I mean, I feel like it's kind of been debated for the last few weeks. Is that Wayne Rooney is going to come to the U.S. It's just a question of where. DC United, I guess, kind of makes sense. I don't know, but I don't know. I can't get that excited. Like Rooney's 32 years old. He's a very talented player, yes, but I mean, like, what does it do? 32 years old, it'll sell a couple tickets for DC United, but is it really going to help them be competitive? Is it really going to draw that many fans to the game? I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I mean, the LA Galaxy, when they had with Zlatan Ibrahimovic this past year, they definitely got some extra fans because Zlatan is unbelievable. Yeah. But I mean, I can't. I don't know if I can get that excited about it. I just don't know if I can.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really adds to the excitement when you have these guys coming over from the Premier League and these other large leagues that have been these superstars as Wayne Rooney has in the past. Obviously, we all know what he did with Manchester United. He won all those trophies, and that was before Everton. So he went from Everton to United, back to Everton, and obviously that was the kind of the sign, the beginning of the end for Wayne Rooney after being brought back to Everton, because he just wasn't able to really perform at that level that United needed him to be at. And so it was obviously a far cry from what he was doing with Sir Alex Ferguson when he was in his prime and right. Ferguson was in his prime of coaching. But I think I'm a little more excited about it than you are, because it's it's another big name that people know, and I think that's all you really need in order to get a few more people excited in the MLS, is to get a guy people know his name. Because if you're just a casual watcher of soccer, especially here in the U.S. for MLS, you don't know half of the guy. I would say 75% of the names that are running around on the field. So if you have a guy, the name, some of his history, I think that helps out quite a bit.
And I kind of agree, but at the same time, I remember a couple of weeks ago, somebody made a joke saying that Rooney is coming to the American Retirement League, and that's basically what all these European like Zlatan, David Beckham, Thierry Henry, once they can't find a contract over in Europe, they come over to the MLS because they know that they'll get paid to help attract fans. And don't get me wrong, Thierry Henry played great for the Red Bulls. He really, really did. And so did Beckham, especially when he was paired with Landon Donovan. I think a lot of it, too, though, for me, and one of the reasons why I can't get excited about it, and this might be dumb, this might be stupid, it's the MLS, and when I think of the MLS, I want it to be a bunch of really, really talented. I want it to be like the NBA, where there's so many talented American players that when they come together and combine on the national team, I know they're going to roll over people in international competition. And you don't have that. I mean, and I lived in D.C. when Freddie Adu came up, and everybody was freaking out about this kid, and he was a bust by all accounts. So that kind of turned me off a little bit from all these stars. But you got Clint Dempsey. You've got, if Landon was still playing, Landon's playing down in Mexico now. Christian Pulisic. Like I said, it's one of those reasons why I'm more amped to watch Christian Pulisic play in the Premier League than I am to watch, Wayne Rooney in the MLS, because Pulisic is going to be the centerpiece of this American international team for the next 8, 10, 12 years. So I don't know. I'm more I could easily watch MLS at 6 o'clock at night, but I would much rather get up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday and watch Liverpool instead. That's just how I am.
Yeah, and my wife, she's an employee of the Chicago Fire, and I can say that it was very exciting in Chicago, at least among soccer fans, when Bastian Schweinsteiger came to join the Fire, because that was another big name, and people knew, like I said, people knew his name, so you started having, he's the only jersey that you can get in Chicago now that actually has a name on the back, and you actually started seeing more Chicago Fire stuff. So I think that helps. But as you said, I'm in Chicago. They are not awful, and I don't watch their game, but I definitely get up and I watch.
What does that do for, like, it helps with ticket sales, but how does that actually help your team be competitive? I'm looking at things and I'm sitting here going, looking at the MLS right now, as we sit here and as you and I discuss these things, the Chicago Fire, that doesn't really help. They're sitting outside the playoffs. The 20 points, but they're sitting outside the playoffs. So having Schweinsteiger is a great name, part of a World Cup championship team. But, what does that actually do for, your competitiveness? And I think eventually that's what really matters, obviously, to anybody, is how competitive are you? And that's where it's really important. I'm looking at Atlanta United, who leads the Eastern Conference in the MLS right now, and I'm going through some of these names. I have no idea who these people are. I don't know who Jose Hernandez is. I don't know who Lagos Kunga is, Chris McCann, Miles Robinson. I don't know who any of those people are. Yet they're leading they're leading the Eastern Conference. So, I guess that's to me, it's a nice ploy. It's a great way to get seats and to sell tickets, but at the same time, eventually what really matters is winning. And I think that's where a lot of people eventually are going to start to sour. And you're starting to see it with Wayne Rooney here a little bit, start to sour on these European stars coming to the U.S. because unless it's a 22-year-old who's turning down, millions of, say Mo Salah decided to leave Liverpool and come play for, a Sporting KC. Say that happened. Say Harry Kane decided, you know what, Tottenham, I'm good. I'm going to go hang out and play for the Houston Dynamo instead. That would be huge, because then you've got one of the premier players currently in the game changing, coming over, instead of a guy who at 32 knows that his career is probably ending and he's in for one last big contract.
Yeah, and you're right. And one more thing to touch on that. I think these teams are kind of, held hostage with some of these large contracts that they give these guys coming over to, because you're going to give them more than, you're giving anyone else just because they're a name. So, as you said, it automatically, it eventually matters how you do on the field and, wins and losses. But I think a lot of these teams, they see the name and they see things matching up a lot better, on the balance sheet before they actually think about how is this going to actually help us on the field. But hey, if you're making money, that's hard to turn down, especially if you're a team in the MLS where, not every team is making a boatload of money in the NFL.
Right,
so
exactly. So I think it sounds like you and I are both on the same page with this poll question here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So head over to our Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Let us know, do European soccer stars coming to the MLS get you more excited to watch the MLS, or not. Me, like I said, I'm still going to wake up at 5 a.m. and watch Liverpool. So.
Yeah, same here. All right, that'll do it for segment 2 of our show. Coming up, we will talk about the NFL, how they just got done with their top player rankings for 2018, who was at the top of the list and who was behind him. How did everybody match up in their position? We'll talk about that. But coming up next in the immediate future, we have LeBron James talk and NBA awards recap. They just had their award show last night where everybody got their MVP awards and six-man awards and best dunk award. Believe it or not, that's a thing. So come on back to the cheap seats right after this break on the Public House Media Network.
This is Kim Meyer, the host of Choose to Rise here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about living with positive mindsets, how to increase our confidence, building our faith, and living out our life on purpose. A new show comes out via podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you want to catch the episode live instead, stop by Public House Media around 6:45 Central Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Ryan Pierce, host of Completely Serious here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Completely Serious, where we talk about sports and have fun with great guests. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Completely Serious. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
We are in the third quarter of the cheap seats, and Christian just got back from the locker room. He's ready to go for the second half, with this being his cold,
my cold game,
cold
my flu game
for him.
Yeah, Whiskey Wednesday over here. Got a little hot toddy action. You know, if you've never had a hot toddy in your life, when you've been sick, then you did not have a great grandma. My grandmother, I don't know how she did this or how she got away with it, but like a hot toddy is literally just whiskey and tea. And my grandmother used to give it to me when I was like 9 when I had colds. So
really,
yeah. Oh, dude, it's awesome. Wow. It killed little whiskey, little honey, little lemon juice, and some tea. Ooh, it tastes really, really good, and I actually feel pretty decent. I know I sound terrible, but I actually feel pretty decent this morning because of this stuff. So.
Christian, you sound great, man. Nobody could tell.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's just redo everything as if I don't sound terrible. That's fine. I like it.
Yeah, right. There's definitely nothing wrong with Christian, everyone.
Nothing.
Before we get started with this LeBron talk, don't forget to go to our Facebook page and check out our poll question for the week. Do European soccer stars make you want to watch the MLS more once they come over to the United States? We just had to talk about that with Wayne Rooney and him heading over to DC United. Now, back to what we always seem to be talking about when it comes to the NBA. It's LeBron James. And a lot of people, it sounds like I'm bitter about this, but I'm really not. When you're the best player in the league, it's hey, I think you deserve to be talked about as much as everybody wants to. So let's get started on that right away. We'll get into the NBA awards recap in a moment. But LeBron says he doesn't want a circus, from teams. He doesn't want a big, this is what we can do for you, yada, yada, yada. Okay, I guess, but
right,
it's going to be a circus.
Yeah,
like,
I think what this really is more than anything else is this is LeBron saying, listen, I've got in my head a very small list of teams that I would consider going to. So you other ones who don't have a chance, don't try to get crazy with me.
Right. He's the hottest girl in class, exactly. Right before the senior prom, right?
Exactly. You know, she's only going to accept invitations from maybe like 6 guys. So that dude sitting in the back. I mean, dude, give it a shot, 100%. You know, shoot your shot, but you know, don't be upset when it gets absolutely swatted into the 7th row. You know.
Yeah. Right. So speaking of that, then what teams actually do have a shot here, Christian? I know we've talked about this in the past, but let's get this out of the way right now. Cleveland has no shot, or else I don't think he'd be talking to any other teams, right?
I've been on the Cleveland train all year. I still think he stays. I will think that until he doesn't, just because $35.6 million is hard to turn down. $252 million, which is what he could have if he decides to opt out and sign a super max, is hard to opt out. It's the most money anybody can give him. Plus, he has said he's only taking max contracts from here on out. The only way he gets his money and leaves Cleveland is a sign and trade. If you do a sign and trade, you're going to deplete the roster that you're going to, because nobody's just going to give, Cavaliers aren't just going to give anybody LeBron James. If they do a sign and trade with the Lakers, they're not just going to say, oh, you know what, give us Lonzo Ball and Julius Randle and you can have LeBron James. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to say, give us Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, maybe we'll take Lonzo Ball and Julius Randle. Give us 4 players. Give us 4 players for LeBron. And then LeBron gets to LA and he's got nobody else on the team. Same with Philadelphia. If he goes to Philly, it's like if they do a sign and trade, first off, why would you trade him to the East? Why would you agree to that? And then if he does a sign and trade, who are they going to give up? It's going to be like Dario Saric. They're not going to give up Ben Simmons. They're not going to give up Joel Embiid. But they're not going. The Cavaliers also aren't going to take just anybody to be able to. They're not going to take J.J. Redick's expiring contract just to get LeBron happy.
But yeah, once we get to this point, though, I mean, LeBron knows if he wants to stay in Cleveland or not, right? Like there are obviously other teams that you can go to, but at the same time, he knows what it's like in Cleveland. That's the one thing that I was completely flabbergasted by the first time we went around with this a couple of years ago. Really, holy smokes, more like 8 years ago now. Wow, that was a long time. My wife and I, we on our Coffee with Keith and Katie show, the shameless plug right there, on Public House Media, we were talking about what was going on in the world the last time LeBron James left Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And just for example, the iPad, the very first original iPad had just come out. Anyways,
the Atlanta Thrashers were still in Atlanta, I think. I don't think the Winnipeg Jets existed yet.
Yeah, no way. They've been around for 10 years. Yeah. Wow.
So it's been a long time, basically. But I mean, I just can't see it. Like, I see more Cleveland trading for Kawhi Leonard than I do LeBron James going elsewhere right now.
Wow.
I don't think Kawhi happens either, but I just can't. I can't see it. If LeBron James says he's only accepting max deals, and he's only accepting the most money possible is in Cleveland. So,
if you're LeBron, though, I mean, I understand, hey, if you're only accepting max deals, if you know you can get max deals, then why not take that? But you've already made more money than you know what to do with. You have a lifetime now. Of course, it's not disclosed, but you reportedly have a lifetime $1 billion contract with Nike.
Yeah.
You don't need a max deal to make ends meet. Ends are met. I
understand that. But I mean, why would you want to go to the West and potentially miss the playoffs with the Lakers or lose earlier in the playoffs than Golden State? If you're chasing rings or if you're trying to continue to build a legacy, there are only 2 places where you should be. Cleveland, and pray to God they figure it out, or Philadelphia. Those are the only 2 places. Because, I mean, unless somehow the Cavs are able to work a 3-team deal with, like, the Knicks and the Celtics, and to get LeBron to Boston, Kyrie to New York, and get Porzingis and Kevin Knox maybe to Cleveland, like, who knows? Like, I don't understand where... Like, I don't understand how any of these trades fit to get LeBron. I don't. So, unless he's going to take, and who knows, he very well could have been blowing smoke up our butts the entire time saying, I'm only going to take the max deal and just go and take, $100 million less to go play in LA as a free agent. He might do that. He very well could do that. I wouldn't be surprised at all, but I don't know. I'm staying on the Cleveland bandwagon till he proves otherwise.
I think he should take $10 million over 5 years for the Bucks. I think he should just.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Just have him go play with Giannis.
Yeah, I think that would be
fun.
Speaking of the comment that you just made, though, and then we'll move on. The Celtics. You're a Celtics fan, Christian, and a lot of Celtics fans are like, I don't want to see LeBron come to Boston.
Nope.
Are you one of those guys, or do you want LeBron in Boston?
Nope. The fact that you were legitimately, 6 minutes away from beating LeBron in Game 7 without your two best players in Kyrie and Gordon Hayward, keep this team the way it is, dominate for the next 5 years, Just absolutely murder people for 5 years. Like the Boston Celtics, I've already got my 2019. I'm actually wearing my 2019 Boston Celtics World Championship T-shirt right now. I've already got it. It's not even out yet. It hasn't even been designed yet. I'm wearing it. So
it's on.
I don't want. And listen, how insane is that? How polarizing is LeBron James to the fact where a team like the Boston Celtics doesn't want the best player in the world, arguably the best player ever. You don't want him. How weird is that? How insane is that? But again, it's this young core. It's, do we get LeBron and win for 2 years, or do we, not worry about LeBron and dominate for like 5? That's the thing. Is it long-term success or quick championships?
All right. Speaking of that, let's move on to the NBA awards, and let's talk about the Boston Celtics again for a second. It's all about you this segment, Christian.
They got
Brad Stevens.
Robbed twice. Unbelievable.
Brad Stevens, Coach of the Year in the NBA.
How does he finish third?
I don't know. Quinn Snyder?
Listen,
Quinn Snyder over Brad Stevens?
Don't get me wrong. If anybody should have been over Brad Stevens, it was Quinn Snyder. But how does Dwayne Casey win Coach of the Year? I get it. It's a regular season award, and he led the team to a franchise best 59 wins. But that team was dealing with a terrible Cavaliers squad, a Celtics team that didn't have, again, its two best players, its second best player for the entire year, and its best player for the last month and a half of the season. Quinn Snyder, if Quinn Snyder had won and Brad Stevens had finished second, I wouldn't be upset. But I don't understand. Even the Wizards were hurt this year. The East was terrible. And just because you won 59 games in the East gets you Coach of the Year. It should have been Quinn Snyder or Brad Stevens in my mind.
Right, and obviously that did not get it done for Toronto. Right. They let him go. You have a Coach of the Year getting let go by the team that he was Coach of the Year for.
Right.
And as you said, I don't think anybody would disagree with you. Obviously underperformed in the playoffs, and that's why they let him go. But hey, this is a regular season award, so apparently that's all it took for Dwayne Casey to get it done.
I was kind of hoping on Monday. I was kind of hoping on Monday when they introduced Casey for Coach of the Year, it would have been and the winner of the Coach of the Year, the Detroit Pistons, Dwayne Casey for the Toronto Raptors. I thought that would have been hilarious. That would have been great to me. It would have been awesome.
That would have been on loan.
On loan. That would have been great.
And let's talk about LeBron James again because it's been about 2 minutes since we haven't talked about him. So let's bring it back. He speaking of people that took third, LeBron James took third in the MVP voting. James Harden taking away his first ever Most Valuable Player award for the Houston Rockets. I don't think anybody could argue that he did not deserve this award.
Yeah, I mean, look, Harden deserved to be MVP, but to me, Harden deserved to be MVP, but LeBron is the MVP. Let's be honest.
Of course.
He is the best player on the planet. He will always be that. And I think what happens is you get kind of fatigued. It's why Jordan didn't win MVP every single year. You get kind of fatigued at how great he is, so you look at who else is doing it. What I was surprised by was that the votes weren't even that close. Harden was almost a runaway. Only two guys got first-place votes, Harden and LeBron. But Harden had 86 first-place votes, and LeBron had the other 15. So, it was a runaway for James Harden. I think that's the only part that really kind of surprised me was how far and away he was named the MVP.
Yeah, but looking at this Houston Rockets team and what they were before James Harden got there, and although they haven't had the success of getting those championships, obviously they're dealing with the Golden State Warriors, so it's hard to have that amount of success in the West. But seeing what he's done with this Houston Rockets team, really being the guy, that many first place votes does surprise me, but the fact that he's the most valuable player does not, because obviously, as you said, I think people just get a little tired of that guy being there every year, because arguably you could have LeBron James as the most valuable player every single year in the league, and how many people could really argue with that? Say, as you mentioned, same thing with Michael Jordan as well. You could have had him the MVP for 15 straight years. If you
I wonder how many people just put LeBron James at the top of their voting sheet at the beginning of the season and just wait to see who maybe deserves it more, kind of thing. But yeah, it's not surprising at all there. Not surprising at all to me.
And the other big one that a lot of people pay attention to, NBA Rookie of the Year, goes to Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia 76ers, not Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I know. Tatum got 95 third-place votes. That's funny to me. That's really funny. I don't know why that's funny to me, but he got 95 of them. And look, I mean, whatever you believe, whether he should have been a rookie or not, this year should have been classified that way. This was Ben Simmons' first year in the league. He was the best out of those first-year players, so I can't really be mad.
Yeah. All right, and let's do just an obscure one that doesn't get a lot of attention. We talked about the big ones. NBA Sportsmanship Award, Kemba Walker of the Charlotte Hornets. What does it take to be the Sportsman of the Year? No technicals, or I'm not trying to.
No, I know. I think it's just maybe one of the most liked guys. One of the better competitors. But again, looking at the voting for that, I mean, here's what's funny: you got Dwayne Casey winning Coach of the Year, who got fired. You got James Harden winning MVP, a part of a team that missed 23 straight three-pointers in a Game 7 in the playoffs. You got Ben Simmons winning Rookie of the Year, who realistically they should have been swept by the Celtics. And then you got Kemba Walker winning Sportsmanship of the Year, and he's probably going to get traded from Charlotte, which is hilarious. Yeah. But it's good to see that. By all accounts, Kemba Walker's a great dude, great guy, and so good to see him kind of be recognized for that.
And I'm going to mention this one because it's the only opportunity I have to mention the Milwaukee Bucks in this conversation. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think I pronounce it pretty well.
Good.
Dunk of the Year. He is the winner of Dunk of the Year. So I'm happy with that one. Yeah. So, all right, moving forward in the show after this break, we're going to talk about the NFL and how guys fared in the NFL top 100 player list. Obviously, that has become a very popular thing on the NFL Network, and they just rounded off their top 10 for the year 2018. That is coming up next on the Cheap Seats.
Tiana Vanderhei here, host of the Refined Redhead podcast on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast. Once you're done with this episode, you should definitely come check out my show, the Refined Redhead podcast, where we talk to real people about relevant information in hopes of inspiring you to chase after whatever dreams you've set out to accomplish, persevering through whatever obstacles are in your way. A new show comes out bi-weekly every Tuesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of the Refined Redhead podcast. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hi, this is Baxter Colburn, host of the Verse of the Day podcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Verse of the Day, where we take a look at real-world experiences and applications to one Bible verse every Monday through Friday as we get an idea of what it looks like to be a little bit better of a Christian and how we can make this world a better place, one verse at a time. I hope you'll join me every single Monday through Friday right here on Public House Media. I hope you'll subscribe by going to Apple Podcasts or wherever you find good podcasts as well. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the following broadcast here on Public House Media.
Welcome back here in the cheap seats, everyone. Keith Hoehne, Christian Heimall filling in for Max Wolpoff. Christian has made it this far. Can he finish it off, or will his cold get him in the end?
No, I see it. The finish line's there.
All right, we've had a great show so far. We're talking about a lot about the NBA, LeBron James, touched on Wayne Rooney for a little bit there, and the World Cup, of course. But now it is time for the league that everyone here in America seems to care about the most, and that is the NFL. It is the best part of my year when the NFL is ramping back up, really for football season, when we're starting to get those preseason favorites in college football and the NFL. And it seems for me, when the NFL is done coming out with their top 100 players from the previous year, then it's time to start talking about the upcoming season, because the draft is over, the OTAs are over, and you really start to see your teams, coming together for the upcoming year. So, top NFL players for the year 2018. I want to start out with number 100, Mr. Irrelevant, let's call him. I just want to start out with that because he is a member of my Green Bay Packers. Clinton Dix. Interesting note here for Dix. I'm not completely sure on this, but I think he did not miss a snap of defense in the year 2018.
Wow.
I don't think he missed a snap.
How did he? But are you upset that you're number 100? Or are you just happy that you made the list?
I'm happy I made the list. You have 104 active players across two teams alone.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So if I make the top 100, I mean, obviously, if you're a good player at your position, and if you see that you just, if you're looking for yourself to last, for the second week in this NFL top 100 list, and if you're all excited to see how many players you beat, and then all of a sudden, and let's start at 100, Clinton Dix. If I'm Dix, I'm like, well, I had my popcorn ready and everything, and now and the game is over moments later.
It's over. Exactly. And it's over. But yeah, I mean, and he's one of 6 Packers that are on that top 100 list. So, which is pretty good. It just kind of shows you the caliber of the team there, that they got, even though they struggled last year, they got 6 guys in the top 100 in the league.
Yeah. And let's talk about the guy that is ranked highest for the Packers, because I know you have an issue with this, Christian. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers at number 10.
Yeah, I don't understand how Aaron Rodgers is only listed as the 10th best player in the league. The guy is arguably the second best quarterback. I'm not even going to say arguably. He's the second best quarterback in the game behind Tom Brady. How is he not ranked in the top 5? And here's my issue with it. Without trying to spoil too much of the top 10, if you haven't seen it already, there are 2 other quarterbacks ahead of Aaron Rodgers. That's my issue. Maybe not the one guy coming up at number 8, but the kid at number 3, or number is it 3 or 4? The kid at 3 is what really kind of just blows my mind, that he's ranked higher than Aaron Rodgers as one of the best players in the league.
Yeah. Well, let's make our way forward then from number 10. Aaron Rodgers at number 10. Von Miller, linebacker from the Broncos, number 9, making the list there, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, arguably the best defensive player in the game. I mean, there's only one guy ahead of him at number 7, so I'm not upset about that at all.
And let's just move right on forward. Drew Brees, number 8. He's the other quarterback that was ranked higher than Aaron Rodgers. I don't have an issue with that at all. Drew Brees, you could argue, is the best quarterback in the league every year.
Yeah, I mean, for 39 years old to have a 72% completion percentage and throw for 4,300 yards, and 23 touchdowns, and be as talented as they were, I'm not, like I said, I'm not as upset about Brees at number 8. So he was very, very good this past year, and he'll probably be just as good this year too.
Yeah, and his story is, every time I think of Drew Brees, I always think of his story and how he dove for that football with the Chargers, and that changed really the landscape for all of NFL, all of the NFL. The Chargers, they drafted Eli Manning, and then they quickly traded Eli for Phillip Rivers.
Yep.
And then Drew Brees had a breakout season, tore up his shoulder and went to the Saints, and then the rest is obviously, as they say, history from there. It's incredible. Aaron Donald, for the Rams at number 7, as you mentioned, Christian, he is the one player ahead of Von Miller on defense in this top 10 ranking.
Defensive Player of the Year last year. He should be the highest ranked defensive player when it comes to this top 100. So yeah, no issues there whatsoever. Wouldn't mind if he was a little bit higher, but yeah, can't complain.
I just had a friend predict that the Rams are the Super Bowl champions in 2019, 2020.
Pick. They're a trendy pick. You got Aaron Donald on defense, and this next guy at number 6 on the other side of the ball.
Todd Gurley, the running back for the Rams. I don't have an issue with that at all. Either number 6. I think he is the best running back in the league right now. Now, obviously, there's one guy in front of him at number 5, but Gurley, I think he's the top running back in the league.
Yeah, I mean, he's insanely impressive, and so is number 5 is Le'Veon Bell. Even though he doesn't have a contract just yet, he says that the contract, talks are a lot better than they were at this point last year, which is good for Steelers fans. But yeah, I mean, you can flip flop either one of those. In my opinion, I would not have an issue with it whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, I love me some Todd Gurley. I really do. Big, powerful back who can run like the wind. Le'Veon Bell's a little bit more calculated, I guess, in his runs. You kind of see him hide behind the line a little bit, waiting for that hole, but still can't go wrong with either one of those guys.
Yeah, completely different running styles, as you mentioned. Some guys are just, give me the ball and I'm just going to run straight forward because people can't stop me when I do that. And as you said, Le'Veon Bell a little more calculated. Likes to wait for that open slit, and then he can make the move from there. Number 4, Julio Jones, wide receiver of the Atlanta Falcons. You could argue he is not the best wide receiver ranked, but I could definitely argue that he's the best receiver in the league.
Yeah, and personally, I think he is. I think he is the best just because on his team there aren't many other options for Matt Ryan to go to. So to be as dominating as he is, and especially when you know that he's the main target, he's the only guy, I would rank him as the number 1 receiver in the league.
All right, and now to number 3. Here's the guy that you have a big issue with being in front of Aaron Rodgers. Number 3 for 2018, Carson Wentz of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, what? The dude didn't even finish last year. He has only been in the league for 2 seasons. I get it. The Eagles had a great year. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl. And Carson Wentz was huge. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. One good year should not bump you up above Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, for crying out loud, let alone put you at number 3 on this list. Carson Wentz should be 12, in my opinion. Maybe 13. But there's no way. If you want to put him at 10, flip-flop him and Aaron Rodgers, fine. I'm fine with that. But there's no way Carson Wentz is the second-best quarterback in the league. Just sorry, Nick Shook, the guy who wrote this, but just no. Absolutely not. No.
Not for 2018 though. Not just for this past season. He was going to be the MVP.
Yeah.
Before he got hurt.
But that doesn't make him the best, the second best quarterback in the game. Like it's not all of a sudden we're not saying James Harden's the second best player in the NBA all of a sudden just because he won an MVP. So I just don't.
But was he the second best quarterback for 2018? Not necessarily the league, but for 2018.
He may have been the best quarterback in 2017. He may have been the best quarterback last year, but I just when you're looking ahead to this year, to 2018, I'm still taking Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers before I take Carson Wentz.
Oh, of course. I would definitely agree with that. And obviously I'm a little biased because I'm an Aaron Rodgers guy, and I definitely love Drew Brees too. But I'm excited about what Carson Wentz is doing in the future. Obviously was a big part in helping the Eagles get to their Super Bowl, although he didn't play in the playoffs. But anyways, let's move on to number 2, Antonio Brown, wide receiver of the Steelers. It's hard to argue with that one, in my opinion. I don't think he's number 2. Now, I think that might be a little high, but again, somebody with his caliber, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to put wide receivers up in the top 5 personally, just because they got to have a good quarterback to be as talented as they are. There's a reason why Julio Jones and Antonio Brown are the only 2 wide receivers in this top 10, because Matt Ryan and Ben Roethlisberger. But this is a spot where I think, Le'Veon Bell, maybe Todd Gurley could be 2 and 4, and you drop Brown and Jones to 5 and 6 and swap those. But you can't. I mean, Antonio Brown is just so talented on a multitude of ways, and he's one of the most consistent wide receivers in the game, and I think that's what makes him so good.
Yeah, and let's go on to number 1, Tom Brady.
Surprise
at number 1. What do you think of that, Christian?
I'm not. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, he is the best in the game. There is no doubt about it. He is the greatest of all time. There is no debate anymore. You can't do it. I don't care. All due respect. All due respect to Joe Montana, who went 4-0 in the Super Bowl. Brady's been to 8, and he's won 5 of them. So. And he's gonna obliterate. He may not get the yardage and touchdown records that Drew Brees and Peyton Manning have, but oh man, he's when you think about football over the last 20 years, you think Tom Brady, and he is the greatest. So he should be the number 1 ranked player in the league.
Now, is he the best quarterback, or is he the most successful? Does he have the most talent, or does he just have the most success?
I think he's the best quarterback, because when you look at the litany of wide receivers that he has had to go throughout his career, from Troy Brown to Randy Moss to Julian Edelman to Danny Amendola, Wes Welker, there's so many guys that are there, year in and year out, different guys that he still is just as talented. And when you make other people around you that good, like you got Danny Amendola that contract in Miami, you got Wes Welker that contract. You got Randy Moss to the Hall of Fame, with that one season in 2007.
You're saying that Randy Moss wasn't a Hall of Fame wide receiver?
No,
he was.
He was, but Brady puts him over the edge there. Because there were a lot of people who were sour on Randy Moss because of his personality. But that year in New England changed everybody's opinion of him.
That's true. I can't argue with that one at all. He at the end of his career was willing to take that backseat and really become a team player, something that you really weren't really didn't see in Randy Moss before that. It's hard to argue with Tom Brady. I agree with you for the most part. I think he has the most. He's definitely had the most success of any other quarterback in the league. Talking about pure talent-wise, being able to make those throws and being able to run outside of the pocket and make those things on the run. I don't think right now in the league you have any better than Aaron Rodgers, but of course he's
right.
He's a little younger.
Listen, if Rodgers had been healthy all last
year,
if Rodgers had been healthy all of last year, I would put Aaron Rodgers at number 1 and Brady at number 2.
Mm-hmm.
But because I don't know how that shoulder's holding up, I can't do that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that helps Tom Brady is his age, what he's doing and the level that he's playing at this time in his career. It's quite impressive.
100%.
All right, so this has been a great Wednesday show, but we're not done yet because we have reached Wacky Wednesday. Wild Wednesday, wild, wacky Wednesday. They can be wild and They can also be wacky.
Exactly.
So, Christian, what do you have for us for this Wild Wednesday?
I've got 2, and they're both in the baseball world.
Right.
Number 1, earlier this week on Monday, I don't know if you saw it, but Edwin Jackson started for the Oakland Athletics, was called up from the minor leagues from AAA Nashville, and it marks the 13th team that Edwin Jackson has pitched for in his illustrious career, tying Octavio Dotel for the most teams played for in Major League history. So good for him. 378 career Major League games since 2003. He started 288 of those with the Dodgers. Over his career, 98 and 120 with a 4.67 ERA. And he didn't pitch terrible on Monday night. Edwin Jackson, 6 innings, 1 run, 6 hits, 7 strikeouts. Didn't get the win because it went, it went down to the bullpen there towards the end. But yeah, good for Edwin Jackson to be able to do that. And then my second one is, I don't know if you saw this on Monday either. This is why I love baseball. Interleague play, Dellin Betances, the reliever for the Yankees, got to have his first major league at bat. And he went up there in interleague play and had this was against the Phillies, and he starts off with this ridiculous Gary Sheffield type bat wiggle, that Sheffield used to do, and then goes all out on a couple of swings, striking out on 3 pitches, but he went all out, man. It was funny. One of the things I love about baseball is interleague play, because Madison Bumgarner is still one of those great, I love it. Pitchers who rake, man, it's awesome. So Dellin Betances and Edwin Jackson are going to share my Wild Wednesday.
I like that. You went a little more light on the Wild Wednesday, and I'm going a little more heavy. This isn't exactly like a fun story, but at the same time, I don't know if you can get any more wild than the NCAA and their rules when it comes to student athletes than it has been the last couple of years. The federal court backed the NCAA on Monday about their transfer rule, requiring players to sit out a year. Obviously, when you have these, quarterbacks, for these major programs that transfer from one program to another, the rule is that more often than not, you have to sit out a year before you are able to compete. And a federal court in Chicago on Monday backed up the NCAA rule on that. And it's not so wild that they backed it up, but it's just another chapter to what has become an ongoing debate for seemingly the last 10 years about whether or not these players have the right to play right away for whatever school they want to play for, because obviously these coaches, go from one place to the next, on a whim, and there's no penalty for that for them.
Yeah, it's one of the things I hate about the NCAA. I get it. Listen, I would understand it more if that was the rule in conference, like Baker Mayfield. So he transferred to Oklahoma, but he made the team as a walk-on. He was not a scholarship athlete at Oklahoma. We got to remember that. Even though he was good enough to be one, that's why he was able to play immediately. But like Cam Newton, who had to go from Florida to a junior college before going to Auburn, so he didn't have to sit out a year. I get it if you're going in conference, I understand that. But if you're transferring from the SEC to the Big Ten, you should be able to play. I'm sorry, these coaches, they can break their contract and go make millions elsewhere and not have any repercussions whatsoever. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, part of me understands the rule to a certain extent, because now, who's to say that you shouldn't be able to do this? But I think you would run into potentially players, the quarterback for Florida and the wide receiver for LSU and the running back for Alabama, all team up saying, hey, Ohio State was pretty decimate. Let's all go to Ohio State.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, I can see why you definitely want that rule in place. However, this is college. This is a kid's future when you're playing at that level. So in order to have these rules interfere with what a player wants to do that's best for him. Especially with these coaches going from one place to the next, with no penalty, it's a little interesting. So that's my Wild Wednesday, and this has been a pretty Wild Wednesday with Christian coming off the bench, and getting it done with his cold, with Max's absence this week. I think Christian did a great job. I'm putting it up there with Michael Jordan right there.
I appreciate it. I'll take it.
All right. This has been the Cheap Seats on Wednesday. Do not forget to tune back into the Cheap Seats on Friday with Matt and Jake. You have Matt and Jake on Friday. You have Christian and Jonathan on Monday. And then, of course, next Wednesday, you'll have me along with Max Wolpoff again. This has been the Cheap Seats. Don't forget to check our Facebook, page and weigh in on that poll question. Do European soccer stars in the U.S. make you want to watch the MLS more? Thank you for joining us, and come back again on Friday for more of the Cheap Seats.